everyone. This is Sam again, Spontané Show. We had some tests with Daniel. We're starting real. So I'm really happy to have Daniel Carlin, amazing man I admire and have a lot of respect for. So we're going to start, as the name is Spontané Show. So first of all, start with an introduction. So Daniel, I'm sorry to make you repeat after the test, but could you please introduce yourself humanly and professionally, please?
Yeah, no problem. That's okay. The first one was a dress rehearsal. So my name is Daniel Carlin. I'm one of the co-founders of the Canadian Bitcoin Conference. So like I was saying earlier, probably a lot of people are wondering how this guy with an Irish accent is organizing, Canada's biggest Bitcoin conference. I guess I can say that now. I'm actually part Canadian. I've spent most of my adult life in and around Toronto area, and I married Manuela, who's my wife, and she's a Quebecer. So I have a good connection with Canada, and a couple of my kids are Canadian as well. But so. That's I guess my introduction.
Thank you so much. So the second question is that people like to know a little bit originally what brought you to this industry, to the Bitcoin, and what is like the mission you had to create the Bitcoin conference, like from day one.
Yeah. So my early stage in my career, I'm an engineer by trade, so I work in kind of buildings for mechanical systems and that sort of stuff. So I part of my activities were design activities when I was working in Toronto for some of the big engineering firms. But as Safety had said previously, when you're working and you're trying to get ahead, you have one eye on your job, being an engineer, and the other eye on Japanese macroeconomics. You're always trying to, when you make the money, you have to try to figure out how to keep it and how to make it work for you. Back in about 2014, I was kind of trying to do that. I was working, making money, and hustling in around Toronto. We were, I like to work at properties as well and develop properties and do that side. But I was listening to Max Kaiser's podcast, and that's kind of what brought me to Bitcoin. So that was probably 2014, 2015, and I didn't get into it too much at that stage, but later on, probably around 17, 18, 20, 18, 2019, started to really invest my time and put my head down in terms of the Bitcoin scene. Became more active in the Bitcoin meetups in the area and in the Toronto area and even the Eastern Durham side. And I met a lot of great Bitcoiners, a lot of the good people who are there now at the moment, like Tomer and Greg Foss used to be about some of those locations as well. But really, there wasn't a conference on the eastern side of Canada that I was aware of. And Manuela, my wife, is an event manager for kind of corporate events, so we were kind of talking. We were like, look, maybe we could do a conference and instead of everyone going to Vegas or going to America or, traveling out west, it might be good for people to attend a conference here, and we could bring speakers here. So with Manuel's expertise and my kind of drive and connections, we started reaching out, and we were very lucky with the community that we have. We made a lot of really good connections, the likes of the Bull Bitcoins, who are have a base in Montreal, and Decentral, who are Montreal based. Lots of other Coinbeast, lots of really good people who thought it was a great idea, really supported it from the start, and that's kind of where it started. So in 2023 we had the first one in the Chelsea Hotel in Toronto. It was a really good event. Like so Francis Pouliot was there, Greg Foss, Lawrence Lepard, Brad Mills, Magdalena Gronowski. So really fun event. A good first event. Second year, then we on the back of that we decided to take it to Montreal. A couple of reasons. I mean, the cost of running an event in Toronto was expensive, but also the fact that the Bitcoiners, we were finding that there was a big base for Bitcoin in Montreal. So we thought, it would be a good place to look into. Manuela is very in her foresight and organizing. She's really quite interested in really cool event spaces. So we found the Rialto Theatre in Montreal. So if anybody is you and I met there last year, yes. And if anybody has any interest, go to the Rialto website and check out their 3D plan. And I mean, it's an amazing venue for something like this, especially from the Bitcoiner frame of mind, that kind of low time preference, but also just the the history of it, the architecture, like it's really, really beautiful. So it fitted our needs last year perfectly, and hopefully all being well, we can fill it this year and we'll have another successful event.
Absolutely, yeah, the theater is amazing. I remember that. So knowing you already use the space, so it will be like, if I remember correctly, there is a place where there's the expo and a place where there is the conference. And some spaces for the mining courses, right? So is this the same activity to this year, or will you have different organization or different structure?
Yeah, it's similar kind of layout. So the main theater area, where most of the main speakers and top people will be talking, that's a really old cool theater. It holds about 1,200 people, so that's where most of the activities will be. But like you say, the exhibition space to the side of that. But it's the cool thing about the Rialto is it's got three levels. So there's kind of the exhibition floor on the ground floor, and then the level above, and then there's a third level. So the plan is this year. I mean, we've had such an increase in participants in terms of the sponsors. So and even exhibition space and more people with art, Bitcoin art. So that's going to be fully utilized. Also, there's a basement to it as well, which is kind of like a comedy club vibe. So that's that's not the Rialto, that's the Piccolo. So the Piccolo space will be our second stage. So we will be having kind of some of those Bitcoin adjacent topics, certain things that might be kind of niche in terms of Bitcoin, and having those in there. So this year, although we used probably about 50 to 60% last year, it's going to be 90 to 100% used this year. I think one of my big concerns is actually the bottleneck in between the main hall and the exhibition space, because it's quite a tight space. So we're trying to work on the circulation and the flow and how people are going to move in and out. And I think it'll be fine, but it's just that I think there's going to be so many people this year.
Yes, absolutely, I'm sure. Exclusively, the timing is exciting. And I'm curious, Daniel, what is the impact have you seen like this event, like Canadian Bitcoin Conference is a reference today. This event created since day one and today for Canadian crypto community, especially for builders, investors, or maybe regulators?
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting question. I mean, the conference space over the past number of years has really grown. The adoption and the discussions around Bitcoin, what I'm seeing and from my discussions in the community is grown massively. And we're hoping that we can bring, the one thing I think about Canada is there's a lot of fragmentation, and I've had discussions with people about this before, where there's people in the West don't want to come to the East. There's people in crypto or blockchain that don't want to kind of come to a Bitcoin event, and really what we're starting to see is and what we're trying to help bridge that gap is bring everybody together, and I think that the Canadian Bitcoin Conference is going to be the place to do that. We have and obviously with the Bitcoin topics, things are changing in Bitcoin, so we're seeing more of the Bitcoin treasury companies now who want to be involved in the conference. So we have representation from Matador, Sonny Ray, who will be there. The Bitcoin Treasury Corporation, Caitlin Thompson, who's I think she's COO there, she'll be coming and speaking. We have other organizations as well who are announcing over the next couple of months or a couple of weeks, but they'll be there. We'll also have probably, and this is a bit of an exclusive for you, I think, Koela from the Canadian Blockchain Consortium. So she will be having a panel, because I mean, really the cool thing, she's working, or probably, I'm not sure if you were there, but they had an excellent panel in Alberta with the premier there, Danielle Smith, talking about a Bitcoin strategic reserve. So,
wow, no, I missed this one. Wow.
So yeah, she had an excellent discussion, and there were a lot of great representatives from the Montreal and from the Eastern Canada there, and she's going to be kind of giving an update and talking about that a little bit more at the conference. And really, I mean, that's what, you know, you asked kind of what our plans are, what, you know, what we're thinking, or what, you know, we're trying to do, and that's really, hopefully this generates is the platform for further discussion and further development, you know, from provinces and premiers and town mayors or whoever else are going to be there to look at what other, you know, what they're doing in America, what they're doing in Alberta, what they're doing, you know, in on the corporate side, from balance sheets to Bitcoin treasury companies, and really having a good look as to what, you know, what needs to be done for Canada and for advancing Bitcoin adoption in Canada, and making sure that Canada isn't left behind. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so yes. So yeah, that's kind of what I see, and what you know, and some of the little topics that we're going to be discussing at the conference.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic. So you talked earlier about the impact and Canada evolution today with crypto, exclusive with Bitcoin. So how do you see like the role Canada in shaping Bitcoin adoption globally?
Well, I mean, I think Canada once was a leader in Bitcoin adoption a number of years ago. I mean, I've you know, from doing the conference or running the conference, I've talked to a lot of really cool people who have been really early in Bitcoin. Lots of people from Montreal. You know, I've heard stories from people who had paper wallets running up the halls of McGill University, giving away paper wallets with tons of Bitcoin on them. Have you heard those stories, or have you?
I heard the stories, but I don't have I did not have the chance to catch up for real with these people.
Yeah, there's one guy. I'll maybe see if I can find his contact again. But he told me that story, and he also told me that he mined 300,000 Bitcoin over a summer in McGill University, and he was a technician, so he had kind of plugged in a Bitcoin miner in a lab in McGill University. So that was that was mind blowing to me. So and you know, these guys also had a connection to Toronto, where, you know, I've talked to guys who were early adopters in the Toronto area, you know, Bitcoin ATMs, and then were part of the Ethereum kind of, you know, I've had guys describe to me where they met Vitalik in Toronto, you know, above a pizza shop, and like, you know, all this sort of, and like, I think it was Spadina in college or somewhere like that, you know, somewhere downtown Toronto. So the Canada, like, you know, Canada was so kind of instrumental in that, you know, in the early stages, and I think we've fallen behind a little bit. And I think you know, with likes of you know, our event and other events, even in Eastern Canada, there's and the work that the blockchain coalition are doing, I think that we can get there eventually, and be maybe not, we might not have the same pull that the Americans have in terms of adoption or in terms of development, but you know, we could be in second place. I think that's a good thing to strive for.
Make total sense. I totally agree. I think the work is in progress. We saw the strong evolution exclusively in US, because we are, like, I know people, they hate when I say that, but we depend in US. That's the truth, guys. Like, what happened in US is following Canada.
Yeah.
And you know, the passage of major US laws such as like Genius Act or Clarity Act, anti-CBDC legislation, all these like offered clear its rules to make Canada following and making like the adoption faster. I hope that. And there is also people attracted only by numbers, and like we saw Bitcoin, I think if my memory is good, is $122,000, and going through exclusive after BlackRock accounted for 370 million in a single day. So the attraction is here, and I think behind the financial there is blockchain, and people need to understand without blockchain there is no crypto, there is no Bitcoin, and blockchain is the revolution. Bitcoin today is the ancestor and the guide of all the crypto projects we see today, and this is the importance to keep respecting this amazing innovation. The other question, I was really attracted and impressed by the impact of Bitcoin in humanitarian infrastructure, for example, in Salvador. Could you tell us a little bit more about you also impacted by that and supporting that, just to tell our people a little bit more.
In El Salvador?
Yes.
Yeah, well, last year we had a great representation from the El Salvador community, and obviously, with the they have their own strategic reserve, and then making Bitcoin currency in El Salvador. We have a guy called Jaime Garcia from I think he's from Regina, and he was working with My Premier Bitcoin, who are an amazing educational institution for early adoption of Bitcoin. They run classes there. They've kind of taken that program across the world, so they're running that out, to a lot of other countries. Jaime had come. He was looking or promoting Bitcoin adoption, Bitcoin education at our conference. We also had a number of representatives from the president of El Salvador. He had some connections who were at the conference last year, so they got up and had some pictures on stage. But the El Salvador connection was amazing last year, and they really brought a nice a nice feel to the country, and there's also or to the conference. But there's also some people who talk about the real impact of Bitcoin in El Salvador, where there are a lot of El Salvadorian Canadians who are here, and they've from discussions we've had, they've decided to go back because of the things have changed there, obviously with Bukele's I guess crackdown on crime, and they there's massive benefits for them from a Bitcoin remittance payment perspective, where they're able to send money back, and then obviously developments in that country. So yeah, El Salvador had a real good presence at the conference last year, and it was nice to see.
Absolutely, I think it's a huge use case for other government to see the Bitcoin adoption and the importance with that amazing technology, because this is a technology first, right, before talking about the asset. So the event today is open for everyone, not only OGs. Could you please share to our people, our community, there is some beginners, because what we do with humanitarian community, we connect OGs with newbies, right, to give advices, training. We organize events, so we have next month event, how to set your wallet as a newbie, what's the rules to do, avoid it, be careful about your private key, a lot of cool stuff and important stuff. So what do we have today for newbies? What do we have for OGs to during the conference?
Yeah, this year we have a lot going on, because it's with really what we're trying to do is to like you say, make it accessible for everybody, make it open for everybody to come and learn, whether you're a newbie, whether you're an OG. It was funny, we had Joe Nakamoto, who was the presenter last year. He did a competition where he was trying to find the biggest OG, and he said, right, sit down if you've got a multi-sig, or sit down if you've or you haven't got, or whatever. But he went through this and they got to the last person, and the last question was if you've lost money on Mt. Gox, or lost Bitcoin on Mt. Gox, and it was so there's some there's some OGs there were there, and I'll not tell you who one. You can watch.
It's sad, but I'm laughing. Sorry.
Yeah. It could have said probably because he was in Quebec. Quadriga was probably.
I'm part of the Canadian losing money in Quadriga.
Yeah.
It's hurting a lot.
So we're trying to make it fun. We're trying to make it have something for everybody, and and make it as accessible as possible. So on the Thursday and obviously, like, the whole ecosystem around Bitcoin has changed in the last year. Number go up. Bitcoin treasury companies, have come in and are playing a big part of that. But Bitcoin businesses are starting to, put their head above the parapet, I guess, and say, like, we would need to learn more. So on the fun side, we have a hockey game. So we had a hockey game last year. That was US versus Canada. So Corey from Hodler's Official, who is kind of runs that, basically you can sign up, play hockey at a local hockey rink with a bunch of Bitcoiners. There's cool things like there was a hockey puck with a Bitcoin logo on it, and a couple of guys do MC and stuff. So that was a nice, really fun event. Like you mentioned at the start, we're running a Bitcoin mining event as well. So Decentral, who are Quebec based, they come in. We have, like, I think it's 24 bit axes, and they will show you how to set that up. If you're interested in mining using a bit axe, you get about 4 or 5 hours with some of their representatives, and they will show you everything you need to know, from kind of building boards, and they got the soldering irons there, and they got everything. So there's smoke everywhere, and like they're connecting things. So that's a really nice small technical thing that we like to do, and really that's been a real huge success. I think we only did like 12 the first year. Like, there's massive demand for that. We also we're running a Bitcoin 101, so it's an open kind of open free event for people coming off the street who, obviously, we always think that the ticket for the event is a barrier for people, and we understand that maybe not everybody wants to spend that money but would like to learn more about Bitcoin. So we try to provide some people so that people can come in off the street, ask questions to get some of the more experienced Bitcoin educators, and then kind of going away, and maybe they will buy a ticket, maybe they won't, maybe that's part of their journey for adopting Bitcoin. So that's kind of the first day. We're also setting up a Bitcoin for Business event. So we have an outline, and it's basically, if you're the target market for this, from talking to a lot of the business owners. So there are companies like Block Rewards, who Scott Deedles in I think he's in Regina, or I can't. He's out west anyway. So they have a company, and their target market is more on the business side, where those businesses may adopt a Bitcoin savings plan. So there are a few of those companies who are more interested on the business people, and they so we've set up a kind of 7 points plan, almost, of, okay, if you're a business owner and you want to start to adopt Bitcoin in your business, here's what you need to do. And it's like, first one is why Bitcoin, second one is like how to accept Bitcoin as a business owner, third one is the tax implications, fourth one's the legal implications, fifth one is self-custody or not, or whatever, and then Bitcoin savings plans. So there's an A to Z there for the Bitcoin businesses, and we have a lot of business owners that have reached out to us so far, who are sending their key decision makers, their CEOs or CFOs or whatever. So that's a really nice thing. So that's all kind of happening on the first day. And that's, I guess there's something in there for the newbies, the 101 and the Bitcoin for Business, and then the OGs. Actually, one thing you might be interested in, we're setting up a debate on the Bitcoin treasury companies versus the Bitcoin self-sovereign individuals. So we've been having this discussion recently about, and you probably see it online. The OGs and the maxis are saying, okay, these Bitcoin treasury companies are scams. They're like, this isn't going to end well. And the treasury companies are like, no, there's fixed income, products that want exposure to Bitcoin, and we're going to set it up for them. So it's not my realm. I don't claim to know a lot about the ins and outs and the workings of it, but I think it'll be a good discussion, and that's where there may be some fireworks where the maxis who are total self-sovereign, and I get it. They want people to take self-custody of their Bitcoin, but the reality is not everybody is capable or confident or whatever to do that, so they may want to use other assets or other avenues. So that'll be a cool discussion, I think, and that's probably one for the OGs where they've been in Bitcoin a long time. Now they're starting to see kind of financial institutions come to the table, so that's kind of for the OGs. And then there's lots of really, I love setting up the panels and talking to people about what's happening and their Bitcoin experience in Canada, and trying to bring in cool speakers and bringing in kind of good ones, different from last year, so that it gives people different, not just the same people talking about the same things over again, different experiences, maybe about Bitcoin security or, different areas, bringing new speakers to talk about different subjects. But I guess, the networking is one of the big things that people go for, and probably yourself, I hear that all the time, like, people, they pay the ticket and you bring in all these cool speakers, but they stand all day in the exhibition space just talking to people. So that's really what people get out of it. So and even old friends, those stories from Montreal and Toronto and those places where, they 10-15 years ago, I listened to a podcast recently, Nolan Burrell and Sonny Ray, and they were talking about running into each other downtown Toronto. Those guys will be there, they'll reconnect, they'll probably chat or whatever. So those are the cool things where you're creating that space and that time for them to do that. So yeah.
Thank you, Daniel. Exactly. Yeah, really appreciate it. And to open the one-on-one, could you please remind us the dates for the event?
Sorry, those are kind of side events.
So 15th is the side events, 16th, 17th is the event.
Yeah.
Great, fantastic. So I will share the link of the website, and if there is any other useful link to the community. So in conclusion, what is the last word you would like to share with the community?
The last word is we have lots of exciting things coming to Montreal. Lots of great speakers. Check out the website. We have people there's some people coming back that love to come back, the likes of Lawrence Lepard and Tomer and Francis and Brad Mills and those guys. We have some new people. The likes of Pete Rizzo from Bitcoin Magazine's coming up. We have Michelle Weekly, who's American based, and we're focusing a little bit more on the security as well. New companies we're hoping to have, likes of as sponsors. We have Fortress, we have Coinbase, a few other ones. So we're really expanding, growing the base in Montreal, and I think the hope is we're going to have 1,000 Bitcoiners in Montreal and over those few days. So if we can pull that off, it'll be a nice thing. And if it goes well, we'll keep it in Montreal. We're having a discussion with the city of Montreal later on today, actually, to see about support and how we can grow this to make Montreal. I shouldn't coin a Donald Trump phrase. I was going to say make Montreal great again, but make Bitcoin great in Montreal again. Let's do it like that.
Make Bitcoin great in Montreal again. I love it. Yeah, absolutely. The community is huge here about the Bitcoiner, and man, and share with you like the fact. We used in the past, our focus in intellectual property to make it accessible to everyone, liquid. We start using Bitcoin stamp in the past, which is the ancestor of NFTs, to generate the first intellectual property certificate in blockchain, meaning blockchain IP. So for me, blockchain is a unique way to make humanity free today. So that's my conclusion, guys. You hear Daniel, we have to be there to connect humanly, intellectually, and to see how we can work together to make Bitcoin shine in Canada. I like that. Thank you, Daniel, so much. I really enjoy this podcast with you.
No problem. Thank you very much for your time, Sam.
It's a pleasure.